Nice day today aboard the Norco Optic C2. Pretty capable trail bike. It's got 140 mil of suspension in the front, 125 in the rear. Obviously makes this bike pretty easy to pedal, whether you're in the saddle or out of the saddle. Does feel like it's got a bit of anti-squat going on. Doesn't feel like a ton, but certainly with that little 125 travel in the rear, it's quite zippy when you're out of the saddle cranking, and of course in the saddle feels real good pedaling. The climbing is kind of accentuated by these Schwalbe tires. Pretty excited to see these come stock on this bike. The Hans Dampf on the rear. Pedals very nice. Pretty low rolling resistance. This bike's got a really nice feeling, intuitive geometry right out of the box. It's got 76-degree C-tube angle, which on this amount of travel, I think is just about right. Feel just forward of the rear side of the bike with my butt, where my weight is. Kind of strikes a balance between really good pedaling in the steep and, you know, really good efficient pedaling on more flatter cross-country terrain. It's definitely the kind of bike that just urges you to kind of get out of the saddle and crank pretty hard. I was pretty impressed with their Ride Aligned app system. They just take their bike setup super seriously. To have the company recommend all the settings customized to your weight and height. I really like the long feeling reach on a bike this size. It's kind of geared towards letting the geometry of the bike do the work more so than the suspension. I think a lot of riders like that feeling of a little bit more raw trail experience, not as squishy, but that really capable kind of spread out chassis that just adds stability at speed. It's kind of interesting for a 480 millimeter reach. This thing feels like you could take it up just about any tight mountain switchback without a problem. I appreciate how they also spec this bike with fairly narrow tires. These 235 Schwalbes are definitely pretty small compared to what most bikes are getting spec'd with these days, but it gives you kind of like a surgical feeling out on the trail. This bike's got the tried and true GX drivetrain. Always feels good. Also comes with these 4-piston Shimano brakes, unfortunately with resin pads and rotors, but you still get that nice kind of grabby Shimano feel, which accentuates a bike like this. The Super Deluxe that comes on the back of this bike is like the smallest little Super Deluxe I've ever seen, but it's such a cool decision to go with that. Make sure that you can ride this bike hard without heating up the oil too much, and a little bit more consistent oil feel out of the shock. Also, to spec this bike with DT350 hubs is a super sustainable build option that I appreciate. Such a peppy feeling suspension system. Just feels pretty high sprung. Definitely not bobbing on this climb. Time for my favorite part. Yeah, feeling quite light. This stem actually feels a little bit maybe longer than what I would run. But yeah, this feels really stable for a 125 millimeter bike. Pretty plush. Feels like it's soaking things up quite nicely. Yeah, wow, that's quite a plush feeling rear end. Yeah, I mean, definitely a super stable bike, especially considering the amount of travel. And yeah, like when you pump it, there's quite a bit of support. It's nice that you can lean hard on these lower volume tires without them rolling at all. Really rewarding bike to pump. I think this bike needs something a little bit more tough and technical than Evo to get it going. So we're gonna take it down Irish Death. Yeah, it's pretty telepathic in these corners. I don't feel like I have to, I actually feel like I'm just kind of leaning less to get the bike to turn than I normally would. Trying to get that weight forward on that long stem. Dang, can't believe how capable the suspension is though. This thing definitely just eats it up. Wow, she just soaks it up. Super easy to preload this bike off the jumps. It's got a very progressive rear end. I certainly haven't bottomed it out. Take this one slow, not slow enough. Yeah, this thing is a cornering machine. Certainly, it just feels like I don't really have to try very hard in the corners. Suspension is just incredibly plush too. Yeah, this is certainly one of the most bottomless feeling 125, rear end size bikes I've ever ridden. Gosh, it just feels so composed. So who's this bike for? This bike is for somebody who wants to do long pedally adventures and they still want the most capable bike that they can get in that category. And I definitely haven't ridden a 125 millimeter bike that feels this capable ever. I just feel like even the trails I've been trying to get it to flinch on Galbraith aren't enough. So somebody who's looking to do some aggressive stuff but wants a smaller bike that gives a little bit more back when you're pumping on the smaller trails. Pretty insane all-arounder, to be honest. If I owned one, I'd definitely swap out the stem for a little bit shorter stem and change the brakes up to semi-metallic. But beyond that, this thing is like an insanely capable 125 millimeter bike. I would say definitely kind of a redefining moment for that small of travel. And the cool thing is it still pedals every bit as good as any other, small 5-inch bike out there. So pretty insane. I definitely feel like this bike has a lot more capability in store than I can explore at Galbraith. I mean, just taking it through those corners, it's just hard to get it to flinch. So if you like this review, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel for more content like this. Go to freehubmag.com.